Thank you. Next, I now recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for coming. I just have a few questions for you, Madam Undersecretary. I'm particularly concerned about diseases being introduced to our herds and flocks around the country. It has a devastating economic impact on agriculture. And one of the things that I'd like to ask you about is African swine flu. Are we importing hogs from Africa?
I can have Dr. Nagel talk a little bit more about some of the interlocking and the things that we're doing to make sure that we keep African swine fever out of the country. African swine fever is unfortunately in many countries, and particularly close to us is in the Dominican Republic, right, and Haiti as well. I'll pass it to Dr. Nagel to talk about the different things, but important is the import controls that we have that Dr.
Right, so I'm just going to cut you off here. I know the answer. I'm asking this, are we importing pork into this country from anywhere? That's just an example because it's the African swine fever. Are we importing pork into the United States?
Yes, we import pork and pork products.
Okay. Are we importing poultry into the United States?
Yes.
Okay.
We import poultry and poultry products into the United States.
All right, so I understand this. So can you maybe explain to me why we're importing pork into the United States and poultry into the United States when the American farmer is capable of producing these in nearly unlimited capacity if they have the appropriate types of regulatory controls established by the government?
Yeah, so international trade that we enjoy goes two-way. And so there are some types of product that are important that we can import here for consumer preferences. But what is very important as we are importing and as we have protocols in place for importing product is that we are making sure that the product that is coming in is free from disease and not introducing a foreign animal disease or a food safety risk to any of our industry and people in the country.
I understand. So I'm asking you, do you think that potentially some of the policies that have been put in place are restricting our ability to produce the pork and poultry here, including exporting them? Because I'm having a really hard time understanding why we're importing, and pretty soon we're going to be a net importer for agriculture. And I think that this, from my perspective, a lot of that is due to some very restrictive policies that I'd like to see. I'd like to see us open them up a little bit so we could produce pork and poultry and serve it around the world, as opposed to potentially importing these animals into the country that introduce these horrible diseases into our flocks and our herds.
Yeah, so I think what's really important is that we are working and actively working on supporting and protecting our own industry, so our own industry continue to grow and thrive, to produce food for our domestic consumers as well as abroad. And I'd like Dr. Nagel to talk about just some of the things that we have in place so that when product is becoming imported that we aren't introducing and we're reducing the risk of introducing any foreign animal diseases.
Please do, Doctor.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure. So within APHIS, we have a group that just focuses on regionalization services. And so whenever a country requests to import any kind of animal or animal product into the United States, we begin an extensive and a quite long process of evaluating their veterinary infrastructure, the disease status of various different diseases in their country, as well as what mitigations they have in place to prevent future outbreaks or respond should those outbreaks occur. After that process occurs, we do multiple site visits, we do formal risk assessments, all of that prior to publishing a proposed rule that would allow for public comment for people to let us know what they think about whether we would recognize certain countries to allow for trade or not.
Great, thank you, Doctor. I'm sorry, my time is going to expire real quick. Then, Madam Undersecretary, I'd like to put on your marketing hat real quick. We go to the store, we can buy skim milk, we can buy 1% milk, and we can buy 2% milk. You know what the fat content of whole milk is?
I don't. I want to say it's somewhere around 6%.
It is not. It's 3.5%. That's the problem. So people think they get skim milk 1%, 2%, and they think they're drinking butter when they have whole milk. So I'm going to ask you, I'd like to get with your staff We have to be able to change this because we're prohibited from marketing whole milk as 3.5% milk. So people think they're getting 6% or 10% or 15%, and they believe that it's unhealthy when in fact it is the most healthy form of milk. So I'm going to ask you to commit to getting with me and my staff to see if we can, you put your marketing hat on it, we can get this changed so that people, the American consumer, understands exactly what they're consuming.
I will absolutely be happy to have our staff and your staff connect.
Well, thank you, Madam Undersecretary and Doctor. I appreciate it. With that, I yield back.